And the first question will come from Salveen Richter with Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my question. Can you frame what we're going to see from the VX-880 program this year and when, and also on the second program, the cells and device program, how you overcome challenges here and your confidence level that you'll be able to kind of get to the bars that you want to see?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the question, Salveen. With regard to the 880 program, remember, this is the program that is, let's call it the naked cell program that requires off-the-shelf immunosuppressives. This is the program that we demonstrate proof of concept with the half-dose patients last year. Where we are now is we fully enrolled this Part B. That's where patients receive the target dose, but in a staggered manner. And the real importance here is, and our excitement is to get to Part C because then we can dose patients concurrently. You should expect data this year at congresses. And there are a couple of important diabetes congresses that occur each year that will have longer duration of follow-up and more patients worth of data. And the dimensions on which you can expect us to share information are what we've already done with the first two patients. That's to say, C-peptide levels, decreases in exogenous insulin, improvements in hemoglobin A1C. With regard to the cells and device program, historically in the field, the challenge with devices has been fibrosis, lack of oxygen getting to the cells inside these devices, as well as the inability for nutrients to go in and for insulin in this instance to be secreted out. We have worked long and hard to develop a proprietary, what we call a channel array device. This device has particular features in terms of geometry, materials, and proximity of blood and oxygen to our cells to overcome these historic barriers. And what I'll say to just give you a little bit more on this point is in small animal models and large, with our proprietary device, we have seen no evidence of fibrosis. Last thing to point out, of course, the same 880 cells that we've already shown proof of concept with, those are the same cells in the cells plus device presentation as well as in our hypoimmune presentation.
Yeah.
The next question will come from Geoff Meacham with Bank of America. Please go ahead.
Hey, everyone. Afternoon, and thanks for the question. Just have two. For VX-548, is the communication strategy here to have all the phase 3 data in acute pain and neuropathic pain and then disclose everything before filing? I wasn't sure what the plan was there. And then, Stuart, given the hospital setting, what role do you think that treatment algorithms and cost-benefit studies will play commercially? This is obviously a pretty different market than you guys are typically used to. And then for 522, I don't have a doubt that you guys can express CFTR, but obviously it has to be in the right tissues. Can you talk maybe about the technical challenges here with an mRNA strategy and your development plans, just at a high level? Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing, Jeff. Let me start with the VX-522 question, which is the mRNA program that we are developing in collaboration with Moderna, and then we'll switch to the 548 program in pain. So with regard to VX-522 and the mRNA program, the biggest challenge we and others have faced through the development of this approach for those last 5,000 patients who cannot benefit from CFTR modulators because they simply don't make any protein, it's been delivery. That is really what we have been working on for years. And it was only about 12, 18 months ago that we really had a big breakthrough in that area. The reason for our excitement for this program is that we can now deliver with our LNPs into our HBE cells using those same assays that are not only qualitatively translated to what we see in the clinic, but quantitatively so. Second, we also can show that the protein expression levels with that mRNA delivery is high with high chloride transport. That's the direct readout for CFTR function. And then lastly, we have taken this mRNA LNP construct and administered it to small animals and large, and we can deliver it to the right cells. That's a really important part of doing this in patients. So that's the technical challenges we've overcome, and it's really been all about delivery. With regard to VX-548, yes, you're right. The plan is to complete the studies, all 3 phase 3 studies, the 2 RCTs, which are very similar to what we've already done in phase 2, and the 1 single-arm study, let's call it an all-comer study so we get different pain types. We are projecting that we're going to complete those trials towards the end of this year, beginning of next, and we'll share all the data at the same time. Stuart, over to you for commercial potential.
Yeah. So, Jeff, as we've described before, this is a very big market opportunity with 1.5 billion treatment days of acute pain therapy prescribed per year. Just to dimensionalize that, I talked in my prepared remarks about 2/3 of those prescriptions are either written and dispensed in a hospital or institution or ambulatory care center, or they are written in the institutional setting but given to a patient on discharge and therefore filled in the retail setting. And the combination of those two accounts for about 2/3 of the 1.5 billion treatment days. When we've talked to stakeholders across the board, they are well aware of the unmet need for new therapies in the acute pain space. Because all institutions and all states have put in place restrictions on the use of opioids, it's created this gap in the market for products like 548 that have a really positive benefit-risk profile. I do think we are beginning to see a sea change in terms of policies which have been focused on limiting utilization of opioids to actually policies which are looking to remove barriers that might be created by cost sensitivity. And I'll point you to the No Pain Act, which I referred to in my prepared remarks. That directs CMS to develop a system of add-on payments for non-opioid pain medicines in addition to the bundle payment that they give to hospitals for the outpatient and the ACS setting. I see that as a really important sea change and recognition that these are cost-sensitive segments, but this is a way of creating barriers or reducing barriers or creating incentives to do the right thing and prescribe non-opioid pain management when they're available.
Hey, Jeff, this is Reshma again. Just to close out on pain, and others may ask questions later, but I just wanted to make sure I also mentioned the peripheral neuropathic pain with VX548. That phase 2 study also began last year, and those results, we aren't calling yet when they would be available, but I wanted to make sure that you know that study is also ongoing.
Great, thank you.
The next question will come from Phil Nadeau with Cowen. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking our question and congrats on the progress. Question on the expense side from us. It does seem like the guidance for costs for 2023 is a bit heavier than we had anticipated, and even excluding the Entrada upfront, it does seem like costs are growing a bit faster than revenue. So we're curious, what are the push-pulls in the guidance? What elements are you including in the guidance? Is there investment for pre-launch, more heavy investment in R&D? Just kind of looking for a little bit more color on what is causing the expenses to rise so much. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to ask Charlie to take that one.
Yeah, Phil, thanks for the question. And just so you get an overall sense of where we're thinking about things, given the strong and predictable performance in CF and the recent success of the advancing pipeline with a number of first-in-class and best-in-class assets, including programs with significant near-term potential commercially, we see this as absolutely the right time to be investing in the business. If you look at 2023 specifically, over 70% of the planned increase in R&D and SG&A is expected in programs which are past POC and therefore meaningfully de-risked. Specifically, we've got trials for Vanza and pain and AMKD and type 1 diabetes. You've got the full year cost of the investments in commercial readiness for sickle cell and beta thal, and we're making commercial investments for pain as well. Importantly, all of these programs are advancing rapidly and represent multi-billion-dollar market opportunities. So, from our perspective, it's the right time to invest, and the good news is that with our differentiated business model, we can deliver industry-leading profitability while we're investing for innovation and growth.
Maybe one follow-up. Is there a long-term goal for either operating margins or R&D and SG&A as a % of sales?
No, we have not established a long-term goal.
Great. Thanks for taking our questions.
The next question will come from Lisa Bayko with Evercore ISI. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Could you just talk a little bit more about VTCE 210 versus 211? I noticed before you were a little bit more focused on 210. Now we're talking about 211. And when, what's the right form for data for there? What should we be expecting to see?
Yeah, sure. Lisa, this is Reshma. VCTX211, a bit of a mouthful, is the study that Vertex is now running in collaboration with CRISPR Therapeutics. It's a hypoimmune program for type 1 diabetes where we're going to be assessing safety and efficacy. VCTX210 was a safety study. In terms of when you should expect data readouts and such, this study is just getting going. We haven't called when we will be sharing results, but it is just getting going.
Okay, great. And then just a quick question, two quick questions actually on regarding the CF franchise. Can you talk about the new 88,000 patients? Is that, kind of equally distributed amongst the key world regions, or are you seeing that more in in certain areas than others? And then as for the long-term patents, how should we be thinking about exclusivity for vanzacaftor? And then I noticed you even have a next-gen after vanzacaftor, and maybe you could enlighten us about market exclusivity there. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Lisa, let me tackle the IP questions, and then I'll turn it over to Stuart to talk about the CF epidemiology. The patent for Trikafta goes out to at least 2037. And the reason, if you're wondering, gosh, how is it so long from when we launched, it's because of the rapid pace from when we had synthesized this molecule in the lab to when we got approval, starting with the U.S., which is about 3 years, 8 months or so. The vanzacaftor triple, we haven't given a specific date, but it's longer than the Trikafta compound. And we have indeed identified potentiators and correctors behind vanzacaftor towards our goal of getting CF patients to sweat chloride levels in the carrier range. And those would be even longer than vanzacaftor. Let me turn it over to Stuart for CF epi.
Yeah, Lisa, so as you said, we updated our estimate for the number of people living with CF to 88,000 for North America, Europe, and Australia. That's an increase from our previous estimate from a couple of years ago of 83,000. It's really driven by three things: more patients coming forward for treatment, better data capture and more complete data capture in registries around the world, and perhaps most importantly, patients with cystic fibrosis are living longer due to improvements in the quality of care over the years and also the availability of truly effective medicines. We see those trends occurring kind of across the globe in all of the regions that I mentioned. It's not just in one part of the world. Those trends are consistent, and I have to say we anticipate those trends will continue into the future.
Great. Thank you very much.
The next question will come from David Risinger with SVB. Please go ahead.
Yes, thanks very much. So my question is on VX-548. I guess first, could you talk about publication plans for detailed phase 2 results in 2023? And if you are planning publications, what incremental points should we be expecting to focus on? And with respect to the commercialization scenarios, there's one in which VX-548 is not inferior to active control, and then another in which it's superior to active control. So it would be helpful to just understand commercial opportunities in those two different scenarios. And then one final tidbit for Charlie. Non-GAAP IPR&D was $116 million in 22. What is the figure that's incorporated in your guidance for 23, please? Thank you.
All right, Dave, you've given us three different questions here. Let me save the two related to 548, and let me ask Charlie to talk about the IPR&D.
David, the guidance includes an estimate of $300 million for IPR&D, and that's inclusive of the upfront for Entrada.
Let me now move to 548. Dave, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the publication strategy and the study design. And I'm going to ask Stuart to tell you about the commercial potential and how we see it depending on the two scenarios that you laid out. 548 and this target in particular, NaV 1.8, has been the holy grail, NaV 1.7 and 1.8, in the pain field for many, many years. And for that reason, because we are the first company to come forward with a highly specific and effective treatment that has shown effectiveness in phase 2 across multiple pain models, not only with 548, but its predecessor molecule, the interest level in the community is very high. And our intent is to publish the full phase 2 data, abdominoplasty and bunionectomy, in a high-profile journal this year. With regard to what additional information you will be able to look at, honestly, the key information we've already revealed in our press release. That is to say, highly efficacious, statistically significant, clinically meaningful results versus placebo. And we've also already shared the numerical results for the opioid control arm. And you can, the context arm, while that reference arm wasn't there for statistical comparisons, you can clearly look and see what the context is there. And you'll have the full safety. The safety profile for 548 is really looking very good. You might remember there were no related SAEs in the phase 2 study. In fact, there were no SAEs at all in bunionectomy. With regard to the study design, the way we've set it up is that it is a study versus placebo, superiority versus placebo. Obviously, that's there to demonstrate the efficaciousness as well as the safety profile. And then we have the opportunity to also assess versus opioids. If you ask me, what are we looking for? If we recapitulate the results in phase 2, that is a home run. Stuart.
Yeah, as Reshma said about the design of the study, the primary endpoint is the comparison to placebo, and then we can compare it to the reference arm. I think in either scenario that you described, Dave, what we've got here is a very significant commercial opportunity. If you are, in addition to being superior to placebo, as good as opioids from an efficacy point of view without all of their associated liabilities, which include addictive potential but aren't restricted to just addictive potential, then that is something that's going to be highly valued by the treating community. Obviously, if we're superior, that's even better, but something which is as good as opioids from an efficacy point of view but without all the liabilities would be a very high value medicine.
Thank you.
The next question will come from Robin Karnauskas with Truist. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. All right, I'll go quickly. So we get a lot of questions on Vertex growth, even despite you have a robust pipeline. Maybe talk about your thoughts around this 8% and if you would think that would continue to slow or how you're thinking about it. And then with regard to next generation, despite like more robust efficacy, it still took some time to switch people over to the next generation product. Maybe some color on what the bar might be to speed up switching. And then my last question was on chronic pain. I mean, so you've got a lot of acute pain data in-house, more to come. I was just curious, is chronic pain partnership still on the table and what you think partners are really looking for in order to take that forward? Thank you.
Yeah. Robin, let me ask Stuart to go first with CF and talk about how we see vanzacaftor and the place for that in the marketplace.
Yeah, so Robin, on vanzacaftor, as you know, based on our in vitro data, but also our phase 2 data, we have good reasons to believe that the vanzacaftor triple combination could provide incremental clinical benefit even over Trikafta, which, as you know, sets a very high bar, and that's the way the study is designed to be able to compare vanzacaftor to Trikafta. I think there's really two patient populations for whom that would be an attractive proposition if it delivers that profile. One is patients who are currently being treated with a CFTR modulator who may be interested in switching to something which offers greater clinical benefit. In addition, and we haven't really talked about this part of the population for a while, but there are some patients who've discontinued CFTR modulators for a variety of reasons over time. Our persistence rates with our CFTR modulators are, let me just re-emphasize, as high as I've ever seen for any chronic oral medication, but we do have patients who have discontinued over time, and so I think those patients who want to be on a CFTR modulator but have had to discontinue one of our previous generations may be interested in the vanzacaftor triple combination when a new treatment option is available. So I do think there is likely to be significant interest from physicians and patients if the vanzacaftor triple combination delivers incremental benefit.
Robin, let me take the question about chronic pain next, and we'll end with growth. We see pain as three distinct categories. Acute pain, that's what we've been talking about with VX548 and this very near-term commercial opportunity, given we are well underway with our phase 3 program, and it is only 48 hours of dosing. The second we see is neuropathic pain. Obviously, that's a version of chronic pain, but we distinguish that from musculoskeletal pain. For neuropathic pain, I see that as equally a Vertexian opportunity as is acute pain. There are a discrete number of prescribers. It can be serviced with a specialty sales force, and we have already shown that this target NaV1.8 with our predecessor molecule VX150 is effective for neuropathic pain. When Lyrica was a branded medicine, just to give you a sense of the market size, it was approximately a $5 billion market for Lyrica in this chronic neuropathic pain. And then there's the third kind of pain, which is musculoskeletal pain. It turns out that we've already studied that as well with our predecessor molecule, and it's effective in that kind of pain setting as well, which is actually quite unusual. There aren't very many medicines that work in acute neuropathic and musculoskeletal pain. I don't see the musculoskeletal pain as a Vertex sales and marketing specialty opportunity, but we're absolutely going to serve all patients, and we would partner that. But our focus is on the two Vertexian opportunities right in front of us, acute pain, very near term, and the neuropathic pain that's already in phase 2, and the predecessor molecule was successful there. With regard to growth, let me ask Charlie to comment on the growth profile for the company.
Yeah, the question, so just a reminder on the guidance, we gave 9.55 to 9.7, 7 to 9% growth over 2022, and that's after a 1.5 percentage point headwind from FX. Stating it differently, it's a $700 million increment on our 2022 revenue of $9 billion, so a significant increase in 2023. I think your question really was about where does growth come from? And so importantly, as has been mentioned, we've recently increased our estimate of epidemiology. From several years ago, we used to say 75,000, then it was 83, now it's 88. So the patient population is growing. Within that patient population, there are 20,000 patients or more who would benefit from a CFTR modulator who are not on medicine today, and we intend to bring as many of those as possible onto medicine as we go with continued uptake across eligible patient groups in countries where we already have reimbursement or approvals, as we expand to younger age groups, and to a lesser extent, as we add additional new reimbursements. And so we have high visibility into our guidance for 2023, and with those drivers, we see growth beyond 23 as well. And of course, we have the emerging opportunity from the Vanza triple and the mRNA therapy in coming years. So overall, we're in great position for continued growth in 23, and we see lots of opportunity for growth beyond 23.
Robin, I'll just add, we've been talking about long-term growth, our 5 and 5 goal. This is 5 new medicines launching in the next 5 years. And then if you think about what qualifies in there, the very near-term opportunities are exa-cel and sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia, vanzacaftor in CF, and VX-548 in pain. Those are just right in front of us. And then we have AMKD that's in phase 2/3 with 147, the type 1 diabetes program that we spoke about, the neuropathic pain program that we spoke about, and there's also the mRNA program and the AATD program, which is also in phase 2.
The next question will come from Mohit Bansal with Wells Fargo. Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much for taking my question. And maybe can you talk a little bit about the capital allocation priorities? I know you announced a buyback program today, but your 2022 year-end cash is almost 14% of your market capitalization at this point. Do you think outside of internal R&D, you could think about some mid-size acquisition at this point, given the cash position and the market at this point? Thank you.
Charlie?
Yeah, Mohit, thanks for the question. On capital allocation, it probably sound like a broken record, but our priorities are the same. Investing in innovation, both internal and external, is the top priority. We clearly see that as the best way to create value for patients and for shareholders. We have, for the last 5 years now, maintained a share buyback program where we focus on offsetting dilution from employee share programs and for some opportunistic buying. And so we have this new larger authorization at $3 billion, but it's simply a reflection of the growing strength of our balance sheet and cash flow.
Thank you.
The next question will come from Michael Yee with Jefferies. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Thanks. Appreciate it. Two pipeline questions for you. One on the Vanza triple. I know that you have commented that you think it could be better. I recall that in the phase 2, there was, although difficult to compare across trial, some debate around whether it was truly better on FEV or more about sweat chloride, and you would see the effects, I think, more peripherally. Can you just comment on whether you actually think FEV actually would be better in the phase 3, given the chloride transport data is so much better? I know David Altshuler has also sort of commented on that. And then on the mRNA program 522, I think you made a nice comment earlier in this call about how, at least in animal models, it was getting into tissue. Can you just reiterate what you were saying about your view of, or testing in HB assays about whether the LNP is actually getting in, and how confident you are in CF tissue that the LNP is getting in? Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing, Mike. With regard to the Vanza triple, if you look at the phase 2 data, and you're right, these are cross-study comparisons, but if you're trying to glean and get a general sense for what the data are telling you, in the phase 2 trials, what you can see is, on average, the Vanza triple, compared to what we have shown with Trikafta, it's about 5 points better on sweat chloride. And if you look closely and look at the ppFEV1 values that we've generated, there are some patients in the Vanza triple where we've seen 20% improvement in ppFEV1. So if you ask me, gosh, can the Vanza triple be better than Trikafta? Yes. And I would say that the strongest evidence for that is the chloride transport in our HBE assays, which have proven themselves time and time again, as well as sweat chloride, because that's simply a less variable measure. But if I look at ppFEV1, there are hints of that as well. but I would put that lower on the scale of evidence because the variability is greater. With regard to mRNA and why we are so enthusiastic about this program, which we are running in collaboration with Moderna, it is really a combination of three things. The first is the ability to demonstrate that with these LNPs, we get the construct into the HBE cells. And that's important because of how reliable the HBE cells are and how translatable they are. Second, it is about the high expression of the protein. And third, in multiple animal models, we can show, and this has been difficult for others to show. Some have not talked about it, and it's been difficult to gather whether they have or have not. But I can tell you, we have in multiple animal models demonstrated that the mRNA gets to the right cells in the lung.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
The next question will come from Jessica Fye with J.P. Morgan. Please go ahead.
Great. Thanks for taking my questions. Just a couple of quick ones, maybe following up on the last. First, with the SAD trial for VX-522 completing this year, should we expect to see data from that trial this year, or might not come until later once the MAD work is complete? And similar question on the phase 2/3 kidney trial. You said you expect to complete the phase 2b dose ranging portion this year. What will we hear at that point? Will we hear anything beyond that a dose has been selected? Will you communicate what that dose is? Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Jess. With regard to the SAD-MAD VX-522 in CF, we do expect that the SAD will complete this year. And it's hard to say that we're going to see an effect because it is a single-dose study, right? But we've been wrong before. When patients started on Trikafta, for example, they tell us they felt differently with the first dose. So we do expect that the SAD will finish, and we fully expect to initiate the MAD as well. And I do think that we will have a good line of sight on efficacy with the MAD. So we're not guiding yet to when the data will be available, but we do expect to finish the SAD. We expect to initiate the MAD, and yes, it's possible that data will be ready this year. On the VX-147 program, inaxaplin, and the phase 2/3 study, you'll remember this one is particularly exciting because it's in kidney disease, where there has been, unfortunately, very little advancement, and there are really no products in development for APOL1-mediated kidney disease, and our phase 2 results showed a 47.6% reduction in proteinuria, which is unprecedented in FSGS, let alone in APOL1-mediated FSGS. We do expect that the phase 2 part of the study will be done this year. Because it's an ongoing study, it's an adaptive 2/3, which means we'll roll right into the phase 3 once dose selection is made. I do not expect that we will be sharing results to maintain study integrity, but we will be sharing that we've completed that portion, we've selected a dose, and we've rolled into phase 3.
Thanks, Chuck. We'll take one more question.
The next question will come from Evan Seigerman with BMO Capital Markets. Please go ahead, sir.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for squeezing me in at the end. I wanted to ask on the IND for the Cells Plus Device program for type 1 diabetes. Can you provide kind of any color as to what exactly the FDA wants, and maybe color as to why Canada was more comfortable with moving into humans versus the FDA? Thank you.
Yeah. Evan, this is about Cells Plus Device VX-264 in type 1 diabetes. This is the program using the same cells as the 880 program, but encapsulated in a device so immunosuppressants are not necessary. The most important thing to tell you is we've received the FDA questions and we've already responded. No new data needed to be generated. No new experiments needed to be run. The questions and clarifications were ready at hand. You know, Evan, if you ask why was one regulatory agency more comfortable than another, that's just a tough question to answer, and I don't know that I have a good answer for you. What I can tell you is that it's a high-quality submission, and we are very excited to get this up and running with patients enrolled and dosed in Canada, and we're working with urgency to get the study in the U.S. as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Chuck, will you please give the replay information?
Yes, ma'am.